Testing the audio. Is everybody good? Test. Okay.
Test, test. be there a couple of years, actually. Yeah, we made it happen. We'll keep.
Sí.
¿Y esto? All right. Good morning to all of the members of the press, to all of the fellow Puerto Ricans that join us, and U.S. citizens. It is important to note that just right after celebrating Veterans Day, we are here together recognizing that in Puerto Rico right now has one of the biggest proportions of veterans and military men that have been working to save the same freedoms and liberties that all others fight for. So it is within this juncture that we talk about what it means to have equality for Puerto Rico, a long-standing battle that we have had, and that now materializes even on a greater scale when we look at what has happened after the twin storms have hit Puerto Rico. Today, what we want to do is let you know that we have been working diligently on a damage assessment for the events that have occurred in Puerto Rico. We have just recently been going through the emergency phase and now are starting to revamp into what will be the recovery phase. And we are sending today to the President of the United States and the White House this document, a document that was produced in collaboration not only with our government agencies, but also with other collaborators such as the Ford Foundation, State of New York, different universities, and others that have pledged their resources and their aid so that we can get a valid assessment of the damages in Puerto Rico. As it stands right now, we've included all of the damages in this preliminary evaluation. The quantity ascends to $94 billion in damages based on a series of models and, of course, efforts for the damage assessment that has ongoing in Puerto Rico. Let me state, first of all, that I would like to thank the White House and I would like to thank Congress for taking action on the second supplemental bill and for their support in the emergency phase. But now this is a critical step forward in the rebuilding of Puerto Rico, where we're not only looking to rebuild as was before, but we want to make it much stronger, much more resilient, and make Puerto Rico a model for the rest of the Caribbean and, frankly, the rest of the region. We're also making a commitment, or I'm also making a commitment, that this will be the most transparent recovery effort in the history of the United States. We will be using all of our resources, our connections, the controls that we have to establish with the federal government, that we will be using a platform, people can see on real time what is going on with this recovery phase, and that in the end, we will not only have had the opportunity to rebuild a stronger and better Puerto Rico, but we'll have done so transparently, openly and with the collaboration of all sectors involved. I would like to thank the leadership of our Congresswoman, Jennifer Gonzalez, for helping throughout all of this process, letting congressmen and Senate and everybody in the United States know the situation that is ongoing in Puerto Rico and the needs that we have moving forward. And finally, I would just like to state that what we're asking for is equal treatment. It's about equal treatment under a natural disaster. A natural disaster does not look at politics, at race, at location. It just, and we need to respond in kind as if in any other state this would have happened. We need to pull together the resources so that we can citizens in Puerto Rico the same way we would do so in any other state. We'd like our resident commissioner, our Congresswoman Jennifer Gonzalez, to also make statements, and we'll be open for questions after that.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you, all of you. I think this is an important conference. Instead of taking into account what happened to the island in the last 53 days. Puerto Rico never before suffered this kind of catastrophic disaster. And this situation has united the people of Puerto Rico in many ways. And one of them is precisely the work we do in Congress to educate members and to have the resources the people of Puerto Rico need at this time, in this moment of need. The first relief package, was approved in the House and in the Senate. It was comprised of more than $7 billion in terms of FEMA directly for $14 billion. And the second one was $36 billion with some allocations directly to the island. I think this is the first time Congress has been direct and first responder in terms of allocating money in a record time to help not just Puerto Rico, but the U.S. Virgin Islands, Florida, and Texas. There's going to be another supplemental. Actually, we expect to receive today the recommendation from the White House in terms of OMB for what that recommendation will be in terms of supplemental, not just for relief, but also to rebuild the island. This is not going to be the last one. I've been in conversations with the leadership in the House and in the Senate side. So we expect to have more than 2 supplementals to the end of this year. One of them should be received before Thanksgiving, and the next one is going to be on December. As it happened with Katrina, they received several supplementals during a 10-year period. We hope not to go to 10-year period. We want to rebuild the island quickly and faster. It is a matter of importance, but also survival mode. One of the issues that the governor just is presenting today, this document is the one that will provide the information related to every federal agency in terms of what we need. And I need to commend and prize what the governor has done in terms of having private sector, corporations, and of course the government doing that assessment. That assessment is important because we are not asking more money, we are asking what is needed. And one of the issues that we are going to be dealing in the House side is that we need some amendments to the Stafford Act. We can repair something to a structure that was from 1950s or 1960s. We need to rebuild. And that rebuilding process will need some amendments to the Stafford Act. In that regard, I filed a bill with Congressman Jose Serrano in a bipartisan mode that is going to be in appropriations. So some committees in the House is going to take a look at it. And the Senate side, same thing. Another bill has been presented in that regard. So we need to have some changes for having FEMA and the federal agencies allow to use all those federal money to rebuild in a faster process, but also in a new infrastructure with the new technology, not looking back to the 1950s or 60s or whatever year it was. So this kind of report that the governor is sending today, I know maybe it's not going to be the final one, because we're going to continue to do assessment on the infrastructure. When more than 18 bridges were washed away by the flood, or more than 42 roads were closed or collapsed, and some parts of the island still with communications and with a lot of damage in infrastructure, we need the resources to rebuild the island. And in that effort, we're working together, as we always have been doing in the last 10 months, 11 months. Also, not just the supplemental, but those bills that are going to help the island to recover.
I would just like to stress that this is a conservative estimate based on, similar efforts that have been done in New York, New Jersey, of course in Texas most recently. But we really wanted to put our team together, working, get the private sector, get the non-for-profit sector to validate a lot of the damages that have occurred in Puerto Rico. And now we have a starting document that will help us be part of the discussion for the next supplementals, and which we fully expect to get equal treatment moving forward. So with that, español. Okay. Muy buenos días a todos los compañeros y compañeras. Estamos aquí hoy, la comisionada residente y este servidor, para presentar lo que es el primer documento para establecer lo que han sido los daños de la tormenta Irma y María, de las tormentas de Irma y María a Puerto Rico. A veces nos olvidamos que vinieron dos tormentas a Puerto Rico y que los daños han sido severos. De hecho, hemos podido ver distintos mecanismos que son expertos en catástrofes establecer que el daño o la tormenta de María es una tormenta que ocurre cada 250 a 1000 años. Y esa tormenta pasó a través de todo Puerto Rico y tuvo un daño significativo. Este esfuerzo ha sido un esfuerzo titánico por parte de nuestro gobierno, del sector privado, las organizaciones sin fines de lucro, para poder buscar lo que han sido los daños y darle al Congreso una hoja de ruta de lo que han sido los daños, número uno, pero lo que son nuestras expectativas de construir a Puerto Rico más fuerte que en el pasado. Y reiteré que hace apenas unos días celebramos el Día de Veteranos aquí en los Estados Unidos, pues Puerto Rico tiene una de las aportaciones más grandes a los veteranos y a las milicias luchando por las mismas batallas, por las mismas libertades, pero lamentablemente no hemos sido tratados igual, y esto va a ser un paso importante para demostrar que los Estados Unidos va a tratar igual a todos sus ciudadanos americanos cuando se esté tratando de este desastre.
Para añadir a lo que ha planteado el gobernador, luego de 53 días de una tormenta, nadie esperaba una catástrofe de esta magnitud. Máxime cuando Puerto Rico es el primero que ayuda a países como Haití, México y cualquier otro país caribeño que tiene una situación de emergencia. Puerto Rico siempre es el que abre las puertas para asistir. Jamás esperábamos que nos impactaran 2 huracanes en menos de 2 semanas. Y eso ha puesto no solamente en riesgo la vida de miles de puertorriqueños, sino también la infraestructura de la isla. Varias de las cosas que hemos estado haciendo en conjunto, el gobernador y esta servidora, es, por ejemplo, este assessment que el gobernador les entrega hoy, permite identificar dónde en la infraestructura de Puerto Rico vamos a requerir los recursos necesarios para su reconstrucción. Y digo reconstrucción y no reparación, porque el Stafford Act específicamente le da instrucciones de hasta dónde pueden reparar, y en muchos de los casos le permiten reparar al estado de la estructura previo al evento atmosférico o al desastre. En ese caso, Puerto Rico no puede darse el lujo de construir a la usanza del 60 o del 50 o del 70, dependiendo de la tecnología que se haya utilizado. Para eso es importante enmienda, y por eso radiqué junto al congresista Serrano un proyecto para enmiendas a este proyecto para que se le permita, no solamente a Puerto Rico, sino también a todos los que han sido impactados, poder reconstruir con la última tecnología para que obviamente sea mucho más fuerte. Algo que va a pasar es que nosotros no vamos a salir del Caribe, así que la ruta de huracanes va a seguir siendo la misma. Por lo tanto, tenemos que construir sabiendo eso, y para que toda nuestra estructura pueda resistir impactos futuros. Amén de que todavía la temporada de huracanes lamentablemente no ha terminado todavía. Y en ese esfuerzo nosotros hemos estado Una vez siempre el gobernador logra con el sector privado, las organizaciones sin fines de lucro y las autoridades locales hacer la cuantía, la identificación de necesidades y recursos por cada municipio. Una vez eso se entrega, nosotros esperamos ya esta semana recibir de parte de la Casa Blanca y de la Oficina de Presupuesto Federal un suplemental, una recomendación de lo que debe aprobarse para la isla, al igual que para el resto de las áreas en desastre. Esa recomendación no va a ser la última. Se prevé que pueda haber otra adicional para diciembre, así que pudieran haber dos, una más pequeña y una más grande a finales de diciembre de este año. Pero como ha dicho el speaker de la Cámara, Paul Ryan, al igual que otro liderato legislativo, se aprobarán las que se tengan que aprobar para permitirle a Puerto Rico tener los recursos y la infraestructura. Vuelvo y digo, no es lo mismo reparar que reconstruir. Y en ese esfuerzo tengo que reconocer todo el liderato del gobernador para lograr que salgamos de un momento de crisis como el que tenemos en Puerto Rico con su liderato y este tipo de entrega que nos permite identificar, no que estamos pidiendo dinero por pedir, sino dónde específicamente están los daños. Yo le agradezco al gobernador ese trabajo en conjunto y de la misma manera que se aprobaron 15 billones en la primera asignación de relief, 36 billones en la segunda, esperamos que ahora podamos identificar recursos para la isla en cada una de las áreas de nuestra economía que están identificadas en este documento.
What's the strategy to deal with the Puerto Rico debtors, debt holders, pardon me, and to possibly shield these resources from any losses?
Well, this is a natural disaster, and it should be, resources that go to attending to natural disasters should precisely go towards that. However, with everything else, in terms of the bondholders, as you're aware, we're on a Title III proceeding right now. So we have given instructions to continue on that effort, and we'll let this discussion go on between the bondholders and the collaboration between the Oversight Board and our government. Thank you.
Mounting concerns about the energy contract that was awarded to Whitefish Energy. Are the questions about this contract and this entire process making it more difficult to ultimately get power back up and running? And do you believe an ethical line was crossed in awarding this contract?
Well, listen, I took action immediately after this. As you know, PREPA is a public corporation which takes decisions in and of itself. As soon as there was public concern, because the contracts were public, I petitioned for an investigation at the local level, at the local comptroller, and I sent that to the IG as well at the federal level. We are awaiting that, but we're here today precisely because we want to move forward, precisely because we want to rebuild a new energy grid. Right now, we're close to establishing 50% of energy restoration in Puerto Rico. A couple of, maybe a month ago, when I established the aggressive timeline, including 50% by November 15th, people said it was too aggressive, but we pulled resources together. We're working with PREPA, some of the contractors, some of the mutual aid agreements as well, so that we can restore our energy grid. So our government is committed to being transparent. That's why we're establishing a path so that this recovery effort is known as the most transparent in the history of the United States. We're working with all of the controls with the federal government, and as I stated, my actions were clear. Let them investigate everything, and let the truth come out.
Sí, me gustaría una pregunta para nuestro servicio, para la agencia quería preguntarle a este servicio, el daño son 94.000 millones, es una cifra muy impresionante.
Sí, hasta ahora.
Cifrado, ¿qué recursos se le estaría pidiendo al gobierno de Estados Unidos teniendo en cuenta este daño tan grande?
Bueno, el daño es grande porque es una catástrofe grande, ¿verdad? Es posiblemente la catástrofe más grande en la historia de Puerto Rico y dicho por FEMA, es la catástrofe más grande que ellos han tenido que atender. O sea que cuando estamos viendo estos números los ponemos en contexto de que toda la isla fue devastada por esta tormenta. Lo que nosotros hemos hecho es ver cuáles son los daños en las distintas áreas, desde energía eléctrica, acueductos, los hogares, las viviendas, las carreteras, salud, educación, entre otros. Todo eso está discretamente establecido aquí, no tan solo con los daños de la reparación, sino también las aspiraciones para poder hacerlo mejor y poder mitigar. Así que estamos, ¿verdad? Yo sé que el número es alto, pero si lo comparamos, por ejemplo, con el reporte que hizo Texas también, pues están en una escala y en una orden de magnitud similar, aunque los daños, la magnitud de esta tormenta ha sido ¿verdad? Mucho mayor. Debo añadir que aunque el número aparente es grande, y lo es, todavía este número es conservador. Todavía es un número conservador porque, por ejemplo, nosotros no estamos cuantificando cuáles son los daños futuros que pueden tener carreteras que ahora mismo están socavadas, pero no lo podemos percibir. Sí, la reforma, lo importante en todo esto es reconocer que Puerto Rico es parte de los Estados Unidos. Y si el objetivo de la reforma contributiva es que se creen más empleos en los Estados Unidos y que estén en una mejor posición, entonces Puerto Rico tiene que ser considerado. Si Puerto Rico no es considerado, terminaría en una mucho peor posición de la que está hoy día. No mejor, mucho peor de la que está hoy día. Entonces son mensajes encontrados, ¿verdad? Por un lado se establece una Junta de Supervisión Fiscal, que no es solamente la Junta, ¿verdad? Es el Task Force para poder traer instrumentos de desarrollo económico para Puerto Rico, y por otro, si se olvida Puerto Rico en este proceso, le estaríamos dando un cantazo al 42% de nuestra economía. Así que el mensaje principal ante tanta variación que hay es, miren, si el objetivo es que se creen más empleos en los Estados Unidos, Puerto Rico es los Estados Unidos. Está creando empleos en los Estados Unidos y por lo tanto tiene que tener los instrumentos para salir en una mejor posición de lo que está ahora. Si tú quieres decir algo.
Requests for assistance come from the bottom up, from mayors to governors and then governors to the White House. The fact that the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority and then you, by extension, did not trigger those requests immediately when Puerto Rico was first in the dark, effectively left Puerto Rico to its own devices until the Army Corps was called in. So in a black sky disaster where electric power and communications are cut off, those requests for help might not get through at once. Do you think that in light of what happened, that bottoms-up policy should be reviewed?
So let me just be clear. Are you talking about the mutual aid agreements?
Yes.
Okay. So with regards to the mutual aid agreements, when I want to put this in context. After the grave devastation that occurred in Puerto Rico, the following days we were essentially cut off from communication. We had no power. We had very little in the terms of logistics throughout Puerto Rico, and we had to attend to emergency situations such as flooding, saving 2,000 people, a dam that might have broken in the northwestern part of the island. Within that time frame, there were several alternatives that were presented to us. One of them was the Corps of Engineers alternative, so that they could actually, without cost sharing, because of Puerto Rico's fiscal situation, they could assume the restoration of the grid in Puerto Rico immediately and within 45 days. Of course, as we know, that didn't happen. We've discussed this at length. But now modifications have been made. We have sat and we have, our team has established communications on a daily basis, about 3 meetings that occur every day. I participate in one of those meetings where the Corps of Engineers, PREPA, mutual aid assistance that has been facilitated afterwards, but it wasn't an alternative originally, and other stakeholders have been part so that we can establish, number one, how many man hours do we need in Puerto Rico so that we can restore our energy grid, and number two, how can we do it in the most aggressive manner so that we can have a Puerto Rico that has energy and that can actually function. I need to remind you that the longer we stay without energy, the more potential for side effects within our healthcare system, within our business community, will occur. So this is why restoring the energy grid right now is the main priority in Puerto Rico, because so much depends on it. And right now, our main focus is to do that. I would say that looking towards the future, of course, when there is fiscal constraint in some jurisdictions, in the face of great devastation, there needs to be more alternatives for those jurisdictions.
So your government has opposed many actions by the Oversight Board, and probably covered this earlier in Spanish. The appointment of the Chief Transformation Officer, the contract review policy. Many in Congress are worried that the fighting between the board and the Puerto Rican government is hampering recovery efforts. Is that something that you are going to address, or do you feel it's necessary?
I can address it right now. It's very simple. The premise of your question, I beg to differ from it. If you look at our history from the past 10 months, we have actually been working with the Oversight Board on many things. We certified a fiscal plan, which many thought that in 58 days was impossible, and we were actually able to do it with communication and with collaboration. We have been able to pass a budget that was essentially 99% of what the legislature had proposed with the Oversight Board. We have been able to pass meaningful reform in Puerto Rico in many fronts. And we, of course, have had our differences. I mean, I think it would be naive to think that when you have an oversight board, you're not going to have differences between the governments. But that is something normal. I think that the main difference that we've had prior to the storm was, number one, in the onset about January, their policy decisions were more directed towards eliminating access to health care, impacting most of the pensions and essentially massive layoffs. And then our second main difference was in the context of furloughs, where we opposed the furloughs in Puerto Rico as a strategy of government, finding other alternatives to meet the fiscal constraints. So the way I view it, I respect and I understand what the board's role is. I just don't think it should have it should attribute to itself more powers than it already has. And powers of administration are not within the scope of the board. That should be the democratically elected government of Puerto Rico. So when we go to the next phase of, who should control policy decisions and who should administer, we've read the law. We are very confident that the law states that the board is there for a peculiar, specific set of things. Number one, make sure that we have budget constraints. We agree with that. We've been working with that. Number two, that they represent Puerto Rico in the Title III proceedings with the bondholders. And number three, that they provide a pathway to access to the open markets. But from that to jumping to sort of a takeover in terms of decision making and administration, we completely oppose this notion. Today there's a hearing. Some of these things will be ironed out today. Puerto Rico is a land of law and order, and we will hear carefully what the judge has to state on that. But it is, and I would state that we are very much committed to working with the board on the different areas that have ensued so far that we've been working on. Public policy, breaking records in terms of how much public policy, fiscally responsible policy, economic development policy that we have passed through our legislature goes on, and that we can recapture that momentum again after the storm. So I would say that we are committed to keeping on working for Puerto Rico, and then after the storm, it is important that we don't get distracted and we focus on rebuilding a stronger Puerto Rico. Sí, para contestar la primera pregunta son 94, un poquito más de 94 mil millones de dólares, ¿verdad? Lo hemos dividido tanto por las distintas áreas, ya bien sea vivienda, energía eléctrica, agricultura, servicios sociales, carreteras, entre otros, al igual que dentro de los distintos programas que ofrece el gobierno federal para poder dar esa asistencia. Así que sí, está la solicitud, correcto, al igual que lo hizo. Y en términos de la política pública de la reforma contributiva, mira, esto es bien sencillo. La comisionada y este servidor pensamos que Puerto Rico debe ser tratado como los Estados Unidos. Y en ese sentido, cuando se está viendo una política pública a nivel global, cuyo objetivo es crear más empleos y traer más riqueza y más industria hacia los Estados Unidos, que Puerto Rico esté dentro, que sea considerado y que al final de esa trayectoria Puerto Rico esté en una mejor posición, al igual que los estados deben de estar en una mejor posición. Hay muchísimas, como usted bien sabe, hay una medida en el Senado, hay una medida en la Cámara, hay muchas discusiones sobre qué es lo que finalmente se va a ver. Y hay un sinnúmero de alternativas, Delgado, y por lo tanto nosotros estamos poniendo todas las cosas sobre la mesa dentro de este panorama que continúa cambiando, pero siempre con el mismo objetivo, que los ciudadanos, que si se va a hacer una reforma donde el objetivo es que se creen más empleos en los Estados Unidos, pues Puerto Rico es parte de los Estados Unidos y eso también se tiene que reseñar.
Sure. I wanted to ask a question to both of you. Both mentioned equal treatment frequently in your statements. Do you plan over the next few months, when you have an audience with the Trump administration, an audience with congressional leadership, to push for statehood, which I know you both are in favor of?
Yeah, well, let me just say something. I will always push for statehood because it is number one, what the people of Puerto Rico have already decided for in 2 occasions. And number 2, I ran on that platform, and I am committed to executing what was on that platform. Certainly, there are many issues on the table, and what we want to make sure is that, of course, I will talk about why statehood is in the best interest of Puerto Rico and in the best interest of the nation. But at the same time, right now, we really want to keep the focus on the storm-centric element of what has happened. We might have differences on what you think about statehood or what I think about statehood and so forth. What there should be no difference is that if there was a natural disaster that impacted U.S. citizens, that they should be treated equally. So in the best interest of making sure that this agenda moves forward, we are today, we've been talking about what that path forward looks like, what we aim to do with that, how we want to make sure that it is the most transparent recovery effort in the United States history, how we want to make sure that it is a platform to renew and rebuild as opposed to just put back things together again that didn't make much sense in the past and wouldn't make much sense to put them back together again within the future. So that is my answer. I will always be a clear, unambiguous supporter of statehood, but at the same time, we are dealing with a certain set of issues, and today we've been really talking about the storm-centric effects that the devastation has happened in Puerto Rico.
In the same regard, I mean, for me, statehood, it's equal to equality. So if you're talking to be equals, it means that you need to treat American citizens living in the island, 3.4 million American citizens, equal. In the last Veteran Day, just 2 days ago, more than 200,000 Puerto Ricans served in all military branches. And we do it proudly, we do it with courage. And I think it's been more than 100 years with the people of Puerto Rico living in a territory it's considered for some reasons foreign country, for other ones it's considered domestic. But the same thing is all those peoples are leaving the island. I mean, look at what happened after this hurricane. More than 100,000 Puerto Ricans left the island. We don't want to leave the island. We want to have the same opportunities, the same tools the rest of the states got to improve our economy and to aspire to be a better citizen. I will be pushing for statehood, which means equality, and that's part of the quest and part of the bills I've been filing in Congress. We both ran in that platform, and it's not just a platform. The people of Puerto Rico supported statehood by 61% in November of 2012, and in June of this year, 97% of the people who voted for statehood. So this is an issue that has been all over for many years, and somebody's receiving a call. But again, and for me, statehood is equality, and we were going to be fighting for that equality.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is often it's considered foreign under U.S. tax code. Do you think that's affecting the way that federal aid has been responding?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that. It's considered.
Sorry.
So,
Let me rephrase that. If Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, do you feel like that has affected the way that the federal government has provided aid to, in response to?
two narratives towards that. Number one, historically, we have certainly been treated unequally over the past 100 years. There should be no doubt about that. I mean, it's not only numerical in terms of the participation in the programs, but also just in the participation of democracy. We don't have voting representation in Congress, and we don't have a vote for the president. But from the storm onwards, I have said that the White House has responded to all of our requests. We have had some ups and downs in different areas, no doubt. We have had some unprecedented challenges. In the past, I had some choice words with some of the people that were working with the energy grid, because I thought it was something that could have been done more effectively. But now we're moving forward. The team is getting together, and it's working effectively. I have to say that for example, that the Department of Defense was fantastic in Puerto Rico. They worked diligently, had over 15,000 military personnel opening roads, giving access to food and water to different people in Puerto Rico, allowing us to have a boat such as the Comfort to provide assistance to health, and the cash hospitals when we needed it. So although, and I'll reiterate this, although a lot of effort has been done, a lot of challenges have been there is still a lot to be done in Puerto Rico. Now, I am, however, confident that we have turned the corner, that we're now, flowing out of the life sustainment phase, and we're starting the recovery phase and the rebuilding phase. And the decisions that Congress takes now regarding that recovery and rebuilding, those initial conditions will define how successful, or will be a critical decision in defining how successful we are in rebuilding Puerto Rico. And we have high expectations. We're not asking for anything different than other jurisdictions have. And we actually want to make ours the most transparent, the clearest, the one that allows us to rebuild stronger and better. My expectation is that within 5 years, as happened with Sandy in New York and New Jersey past month, they can have an event and look back at what was New York before the storm, how it was devastated, and then how they rebuilt even better than before. I think we have an even bigger opportunity to do that, based on how we were lagging behind in certain infrastructure areas in Puerto Rico, and also based on the vast opportunities that we have for Puerto Rico. I mean, just take the energy grid, for example. The energy grid in Puerto Rico is a 1950s grid with 1950s generators. And they're not efficient, they're not effective. Why would we restore that? That is not the best use of taxpayer money. Why don't we use the opportunity to think bolder, think differently, think about how we can leapfrog in renewables 20 to 25% quickly, how we can start creating microgrids along Puerto Rico, how we can create virtual power plants with people having their own devices at home, and then channeling them to different areas. I mean, Puerto Rico has that opportunity right now, and we need to seize it. And what we're asking Congress is to allow us to have those resources to rebuild, but to be mindful that we don't want to just put back things as they were before. We really want to be bolder and better than ever before. Thank you. Go ahead. Sí, quédate. Oh, yep. I want to thank the NGA for allowing us to have this this meeting over here. They were very, very gracious as always. Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. Good luck on the day.